Start. I shall now give a brief survey of the provisions in the bill which are designed to encourage investments in productive enterprises to stimulate higher productivity as well as exports and to provide resources for expansion of industry in order to encourage investment by individuals and Hindu undivided families in the equity shares of new industrial companies in India. Provision has been made for the grant of tax-free tax credit certificates to them with reference to their subscriptions to eligible issues of capital by such companies for a period of 4 financial years commencing with the financial year in which the investment is made. The amount of the tax credit certificates is to be calculated at the slab system of rates and will be limited to rupees 1250 for each financial year on a total investment of rupees 30,000. Under the original provision in the bill, only the first subscriber to eligible issues of capital qualifies for the tax credit certificates, considering the fact that a substantial part of the capital issues made in recent months has had to be taken up and is still held by financial institutions which underwrote those issues. The eligibility for the credit certificates has been extended to individuals and Hindu undivided families who purchase shares forming part of an eligible issue of capital from an underwriter declared as such in the relevant prospectus. In the incentives for increased industrial production as well as for the more efficient use of the capital already invested are provided in the form of tax credit certificates calculated with reference to the central excise duty payable on increased production in the relevant year over that of the base year and with reference to the additional amount of corporation tax payable by a company in the relevant year over that payable by it in the base year. The amount of the tax credit certificates granted for these purposes is required to be used for discharging debt obligations, acquisition of capital assets in India, including construction of a building for the purpose of the business, and in the case of a company also for the redemption of its debentures. This would enable industrial units to pay off the money which they had borrowed for expanding their productive capacity, or alternatively to plow back a larger portion of their current earnings for the purpose of expansion. Sir, I rise to support the budget which has been presented by the Finance Minister for the year 2002-03. The budget is bold, innovative and pragmatic in introducing many steps for restoring the economy to its proper path. We have got to see why this budgetary policy was introduced. This House knows what was the economic scenario at the time when the present government came to power in June 1991, the economy was going to be bankrupt in the international sphere. Our reserves of foreign exchange for the imports were not even for 2 weeks requirements internationally. The world was not at all giving any credibility to the Indian economy, and the foreign banks stopped lending money to India. The NRIs were withdrawing their deposits because they had lost confidence in the Indian economy. That was the position which was being brought about by the 18 months rule, and in 11 months the government of the National Front had brought the economy to such a position that the inflation in the country reached its high water mark in July 1997 at 16%. The government have to face this impending crisis because if the international banks and institutions stop supplying funds to India, what will be our position, our credibility before the world? Faced with this situation, the government took the bold step of devaluation and took certain important immediate measures for the restoring the economic strength and vitality of our country. The result is that the present position is that the foreign exchange reserves for our country have increased to rupees 12,000 crores. We are not to depend upon charity now because we our own strength of our foreign exchange reserves. The inflation is arrested. It cannot be reduced overnight. Economic reforms cannot be made by the magic wand of only the finance minister. The budgetary policy only can create certain conditions to which economy has to respond, and the response cannot be made like the Aladdin's lamp overnight, and hence we have got to wait for the results of the policy which has been introduced by the finance minister. We have to see today what are the objectives that the government had in view for introducing the various measures, some of which are really innovative and beneficial to our economy. The objective before the government was to tide over the crisis in the balance of payments position, and at the same time to control the inflation in the country. Twin objectives were achieved by the government by introducing our new industrial policy, monetary policy, trade policy, and fiscal policy, as well as the budgetary policy reflects the economic philosophy, the fiscal policy of the government, and the government thought and rightly so that if the economy is to be restored from its impasse, one of the major objectives will be to liberalize the economy and to unshackle the economy from the cobwebs of bureaucratic control. It is precisely because of this reason that the new industrial policy, excepting in certain basic sectors, has now freed the economy from the licensing and other requirements which created artificial bottlenecks in developing the country on its own. The finance minister has introduced various measures to give relief to the different sectors of the economy.